What's up, everybody? Thralls Melodic here once again. I'm Necrotic Nick, and I have an album review for you. And this is one I've been anticipating just because it's kind of been a while since their last album. So today I'm going to go over the newest album from Origin, Chaosmos. This also comes out on the 3rd of June on Agonia Records. It's been formed in 1997 in Kansas, and then it's kind of moved around the states for a little bit here. This is their 8th full-length overall, and if you're not familiar with Origin, this is fucking just intensely brutal, technical death metal, brutal death metal. It's just a blitz of insane riffing and wild bass playing, frantic vocals, and machine gun fucking blast beats left and right. That's kind of been their staple thing. Like, they have been just this brutally intense band since I got into them, which I think was around Echoes of Decimation. And the formula has varied on releases, but on this one, there's a little bit more to it, and I was kind of surprised by it. The album just explodes into what you are probably accustomed to from Origin if you've been a fan for a long time. Just insane technical play, blast beats. The vocals are violent, frantic, and layered. There's alternating vocals between Jason Case, the frontman, Paul Ryan, and the bassist, whose name I fucking forgot, and I should have wrote down, but he also contributes vocals too, and you get this sort of layered attack on vocals, but it's the insane fucking music. Like, right away, the thing that caught me on this opening track was this really intricate kind of Middle Eastern bass line on it. And I thought that was really interesting right out of the gate, just because generally they just go for the throat and just go brutal as hell. And of course this album is brutal as hell, but having something like that was almost like a teaser for what was to come, because towards the middle of the album, it stays brutal, but you start getting a little bit more experimentation. But this song, and probably the first three on here, just kind of lay down the foundation of what Origin is. Brutal, fast, technical, and, well, I mean, if they were an RPG character, they definitely fucking went for all dexterity and all strength. Because the level of playing on here is just flat out insane. While it is a lot of noodles and arpeggios and sweeps and scales and tapping, there's a bunch of guitar shit that I don't fully understand, but I'm pretty sure they're doing there because it seems like they're hitting every fucking note they possibly can in a lot of these songs. But mixed in there, you get giant breakdowns, and surprisingly, one of the things that kind of caught me off guard in this is definitely a little bit more groovy and a little bit more riffy too. Like, there's definitely more of a focus on like groovier hooks. The breakdowns seem more pronounced, and it's not just the blitz of, insanity that Origin usually delivers. That kind of comes in doses, and it's broken up well by different sorts of flavors they threw in there, because I would say this album is maybe a touch experimental. At no point does it feel like you're not listening to Origin, but there are definitely points in here where their sound is just a little bit more refined and a little bit more outside the box. The song Decolonizer pretty much foregoes a lot of the blast beats and sort of delivers this sort of groovy, thrashy, almost kind of death grindy feel, like kind of similar to Napalm Death. It kind of has this old school mosher kind of feel to it, like a little bit of like crossover thrash energy in there before shifting over to just flat out brutal death metal. But then it switches up to like D beats and like kind of more of a hardcore flavor. The song kind of goes all over the place, but the thing that really struck me on this is it's not the usual thing for Origin. This song just feels flat out fun. Like, they weren't trying to go for the most technical thing imaginable, which seems to be like the mission statement on a lot of their songs. They were just trying to write a catchy, brutal song, and they really did that here. And it made for a real good standout on here. Like, this was one that kind of caught me off guard. Like, I literally kept looking back. I was like, am I listening to the same album? Because while the production is pretty much the same across the board, it feels almost like a different band in certain spots. But again, it never loses that Origin feel, because even while you're settling into these like interesting different moments on here, they break into what is more, familiar for them and remind you that, yes, this is fucking Origin and we're here to cave in your head. And going maybe a little bit further outside of the box for these guys, you have songs like Callscape and Nostalgia for Oblivion, which both are darker and moodier. Like, it's not, again, always brutal. This is more of like sort of like a doomy, blackened vibe, especially on Callscape. Callscape opens up with flat out black metal riffs, and you have Jason Kaiser pretty much throwing out his big black metal shrieks, or at least like his more, shrieky voice, which actually matches up really well. It sounds more black metal up until it changes over to like more like Morbid Angel style tremolo riffs, and then like some really nasty syncopated chugs. And there's some really cool breakdowns on here, both more in the style of like Dying Fetus and Suffocation, but also kind of along the lines of Decapitated as well. And on Callscape, the black metal sort of like bookends a little bit. Like it opens up kind of more cold, or at least cold for, Origin, and then it closes the same way, and that kind of adds a different sort of atmosphere to it. But Nostalgia for Oblivion gets flat out epic. In fact, if maybe I heard like Carl Sanders start growling on this, it would sound like a Nile song in spots. Like there are little bits of that Middle Eastern flavor in there, but it's that epicness, but it's epically brutal too. So it's a really interesting sound for them, because generally when I think of Origin, I think of just brutality and technicality forward. This actually has solid melodic hooks and has some really cool like melodic guitar parts on there that I thought were not just the usual blitz of just madness that Origin usually delivers. And there's a little bit more to atmosphere on here too. Like I really just sort of dig the whole vibe. And again, I was kind of shocked at how melodic this is. The whole album kind of feels like they stripped back a lot of the more technical, insane play that they're known for and supplemented in more riffs, more catchy hooks that are actually repeated and are not just a blitz of notes that, they're really fucking good at. And they also added a fuck ton more groove. Like I think there's more breakdowns and there's just more groovy sections in general. Now, Longstreth is still blasting like a maniac. In fact, that snare sounds like machine gun fire half the fucking time. But the fact that there's more groove on this and more melody, this might be one of their catchiest albums yet. And I was a big fan of their last one. I thought it was a really solid album. But this one, I think, ups the experimentation a bit. They kind of get outside of the box a bit, and they do it well. But again, the main thing is it still sounds like Origin. Like this is instantly recognizable as Origin if you've been listening to this band for a while. And there's definitely a ton of stuff that calls back to what you were used to from Origin. Panoptical might be the shreddiest fucking song on here. It really doesn't do much in the way of like riffing, like that's more intermittent on here. It's more about like all the clever noodles and tapping and just all the wild play on here. And it's really cool to hear the interplay between Paul Ryan and the bassist, because those two, man, they really just play well off of each other. I also like the fact that the drum work is kind of playful in that song too. Like you hear snare rolls in certain spots where there's like a really cool like ascending scale. It's one of the tightest songs on here just in terms of the straightforward technicality, but the important thing is I think it's a fun song. Like it's actually catchy. The tapping melodies are catchy. It's not just total wankery for no reason. Like it actually drives the song. And the fact that there are 3 songs over the 6-minute mark that do not get dull, in fact, I think they're some of the most interesting songs on here, really is sort of a testament to the songwriting. Like it stays intense, it stays interesting, and it doesn't dick around much. Heat Death, the big closer, over 11 minutes long, and it lays on big syncopated grooves almost the entire time, and man, it has probably some of the catchiest riffs on the entire album. It squeezes in a couple of like black metal moments here and there, but this one is mainly about just driving home a big chuggy fucking riff and kind of making a melody just sink in. I really love the vibe of the song and the fact that it is a little bit more groove laden too. It just stood out to me as a big hook. But it kind of has like a strange ending to it. The song cuts off after a little bit and it has this big spacey synth thing that's kind of going through a very ambient section, and then you get these cosmic sounding guitars, and I like it. It's kind of a cool moody end to this, but it kind of kills the momentum of the song. Like I feel like it just kind of leaves off at a point where they could have built to an even bigger like crescendo, but it does kind of fit with Origin's thing, so I can't really knock it that much. But there were some things on here that I didn't care for very much. Namely, I think the front half of the album, or rather like the first 3 tracks, while they're good, I think they're a lot weaker than the back half. Like the strength of this album, I think, starts around Panoptical and all the way to the end. That is some of the best stuff I think they've done here recently. The first 3 tracks are pretty good, though I think the title track, and it was a lead-off single, I believe, is kind of a weak track. Like it really only has 3 parts, and it feels like the least thought out track on here. Like, okay, we have a breakdown, we have a main tremolo riff, and then like another blasty section in there too that's a little bit different. And while it's technical as hell and brutal as hell, And I do like the breakdown. It just feels very plain versus the rest of the album. And as far as the mix goes, I would have liked to hear the vocals more up front. Like Jason and the rest of the guys are just growling their guts out, but it kind of sits a little bit back in the mix. And man, Longstress snare is fucking loud as shit. I think the vocals just need to come up like, Longstress, drum kit sounds good where it is. Just bring up the vocals a bit. But overall, the production captures the live vibe, which if you've ever seen Origin live, it is absolutely insane and almost exhausting to watch them play. But overall, I really dug this album. This was kind of unexpected just in terms of all that was going on in here. Like I expected an Origin album. I still got an Origin album, but I got like a lot more than I was expecting. Like they really kind of branched out, experimented a little bit, and made these songs stand out. So overall, I'm gonna give this 4 stars. This is a fucking banger. It retains everything that I love about Origin, the technical play, the flat out brutality, the insane speed, but the fact that there's way more dynamics in here and that willingness to experiment, including like black metal and like a little bit more groove to it and fucking tons of riffs. That makes this album stand out a little bit more in their discography overall. Like I love all their albums. I own all their albums. This one I think is a standout piece. I strongly recommend checking this one out. If you're a fan of Nile, Suffocation, or like way more like intense brutal death metal stuff too, like Worm and shit like that, I strongly recommend checking this one out. This is an absolute beast, and way to go guys, fucking killer album. So if you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up, and if you are new to the channel, subscribe because we do stuff like this all the time. We are also on Patreon. If you'd like to help us out there, there'll be a link down below. We are gonna start doing more on Patreon probably towards the end of this month. You guys will see, it should be fun. We also have a link down there for thrallsmetal.com if you'd like to get one of our kick-ass shirts. And there's also a link down there for Denver Death Fest for any prospective bands that would like to jump in on this opportunity. All you have to do is click that link, fill out the form, and you are at least entered in the list of bands that are applying for it. This fest will go on from September 30th all the way through October 2nd this year in Denver, and we're looking forward to getting this thing started. We're kind of eager to start a whole new Death Fest thing, but we need bands. So definitely click that link if you are in a band. So as always, I'd like to thank every last one of you. Again, I'm still kind of like on cloud 9 from the whole MDF experience. Everyone coming up and saying hi to us, that was absolutely awesome. But to everyone else, our awesome fucking community we have here, thank you guys so much. This is so much fun. In fact, I think it's becoming more fun. I didn't know that was possible, but it is. And we look forward to cranking out a whole bunch of just, interesting fucking metal-oriented stuff because that's what we do. That's what we love, and we love that you love this stuff. Yeah, that makes sense. Anyway, thank you all very much once again, and we will catch you later.